Nikon FE, the underrated classic. This is a camera that often gets overlooked, especially when people talk about the FM2.
But for me, the FE is one of the most valuable choices you can make if you want a film camera that is practical, affordable, and still gives you the full Nikon experience. Let's start with the history. The FE was introduced in 1978 alongside the FM. At that time, Nikon was facing competition from Olympus, Canon, and Pentax, who were all pushing smaller, lighter SLRs. Nikon's flagship was still the F2, a mechanical beast. But Nikon knew they needed cameras that appealed to a wider audience. So they created two lines, the FM, fully mechanical, and the FE, electronic with aperture priority auto exposure. Together, they gave photographers a choice, pure mechanics or modern convenience. And here's an interesting detail about the development history. Even though the Nikon FM was released first in 1977, the truth is that planning for the Nikon FE had started much earlier. Nikon's engineering team had already been working on the electronic circuitry, designing it to handle a wide voltage range. This allowed them to use the same control chip across multiple models, saving costs while improving accuracy. It also meant that the FE inherited a system that was robust, efficient, and easy to service. That forward-thinking design is one of the reasons Nikon cameras are known for their durability and why spare parts are still relatively easy to find today. Now, let's talk about usability and handling, because this is where the FE really shines. In many ways, the FE represents the point where manual focus cameras reach a kind of perfection. Think about film loading. Leica cameras were often criticized for being slow and complicated to load. The original Nikon F improved things, but it still required removing the entire back cover. Then came the Nikon F2, which introduced the familiar hinged back door we know today, but it still used a separate release button under the camera. You had to pull up the rewind crank first, then press the release. By the time Nikon released the FE, they had simplified the process. Just pull up the rewind crank and the back pops open. And here's the clever part. Nikon added a safety feature so the back would not open by accident. It is a two-step lock. You first have to push the small lever at the base of the rewind crank, and only then can you lift it to open the door. It shows how Nikon refined usability to a point of real elegance. And it wasn't just the film door. Every control on the FE feels like it was designed with care. The shutter speed dial sits right on top, easy to reach. There's a lever for multiple exposures, a depth of field preview, and even a meter lock, all laid out in a way that feels natural. This design was so good that the FM2 basically copied it, and it remained the template for Nikon's manual cameras for years. Specs of the FE were solid. It had a vertical travel metal shutter with speeds from 8 seconds to 1/1000th of a second, plus bulb. Flash sync at 1/125th. The viewfinder gave about 93% coverage, bright and clear. And the big feature, aperture priority mode. That meant you could set your aperture and the camera would choose the shutter speed for you. For many photographers, that was a huge step forward in usability. And here's a hidden feature many people don't know. Because the FE uses an electronic shutter, in auto mode it can actually go beyond the marked speeds. Depending on the light, it can reach up to 1/2000th or even 1/4000th of a second. And unlike mechanical cameras where shutter speeds are locked to fixed steps, the FE's auto mode delivers exact values. If the meter reads 1/354, the shutter fires at 1/354. That precision is something mechanical cameras simply cannot do. At the same time, Nikon gave the FE a mechanical backup, 1/90th of a second and bulb. For me, that 1/90th is more useful in emergencies than the 1/250th backup in the FE2. It makes the FE more practical when batteries fail. Now let's talk about the positives. The FE is incredibly convenient to use. That aperture priority mode makes shooting faster and more intuitive. The needle-based light meter is another highlight. Many people love it because it shows you exactly what's happening. The shutter speed the camera recommends, the speed you've set, and whether you're under or over by a stop or two. It's clear, simple, and effective. And here's the wow effect, the Nikon F lens system. No other brand offers such a wide range of lenses. with optical quality that is hard to deny. Even today, second-hand prices make it easy to experiment. Just the lens ecosystem alone puts Nikon ahead of the competition. It is unmatched, and it makes the FE feel like a gateway into one of the richest systems in photography. Another strength is the silicon light meter cell. It was more modern than the gallium photo cells used in the FM. Gallium cells had several weaknesses. They were slower to respond to changes in light, they tended to drift in accuracy over time, and they were more sensitive to aging and environmental conditions. Because of these limitations, gallium cells were eventually abandoned in favor of silicon cells, which are faster, more stable, and more reliable. The FE's silicon meter system is considered more advanced, more durable, and easier to maintain. Even today, you rarely hear about FE meters failing, which makes this one of the standout features of the camera. The FE was also popular in its day, which means spare parts are still relatively easy to find. The body is well sealed, adding to its durability. So even though it is an electronic camera, it does not have the reputation of being fragile. Quite the opposite, it is known for lasting. And here's another killer feature: lens compatibility. The FE was designed to support pre-AI lenses. There is a small lever at the lens mount that can be flipped to accommodate older pre-AI glass. For many photographers who still own or love those lenses, this feature is critical. It means the FE and FM can use a wider range of optics than the FM2 or FE2, which drop that compatibility. For some people, this is the deciding factor that makes the FE the smarter choice. Okay, let's get into the downside. For someone like me, who love purely mechanical cameras, the FE will never score as high as the FM2 or F2. Electronics always raise questions about longevity. And while the FE is durable, it may not survive another 100 years the way a fully mechanical camera might. That is the trade-off: convenience and usability versus absolute mechanical purity. So here's my verdict. I give the Nikon FE 7.5 out of 10. It is underrated, practical, and one of the best value choices if you do not want to spend FM2 money. It is easy to use, reliable, and backed by the unbeatable Nikon F lens system. But because I am someone who loves mechanical cameras, I cannot give it the same score as the FM2. Still, if you are looking for a film camera to actually use to shoot rolls, enjoy the classic manual experience, and not worry about whether it will last a century, then the FE deserves a perfect 10 in that category. It is the most underrated Nikon of its era, and for me, one of the smartest choices you can make. Alright, that's it for the Nikon FE, the most underrated Nikon of its time. But hey, don't go too far, because in the next video, we're going to step up in size. Way up. I'm talking medium format, the big boys of the film era. Maybe the Mamiya RB67, maybe the RZ67 cameras that rule the studio world, just like Nikon rule 35mm. These beasts were heavy, powerful, and loved by pros everywhere. And I'll share why one of them became the camera I used the longest in my professional career. So stick around, it's going to be fun, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.